Okay, so we'll start off with a little bit of backstory on Hudak, the Ice Knight, and his introduction into GMS. It's important to know that the content that he was involved with was the short-lived PvP system, which was called Battle Mode. And Battle Mode was first introduced in version 99's Chaos update all the way back in the summer of 2011. Chaos kind of came out sectionally in 5 different parts ranging through versions 99 and version 100, but when the PvP system came out, there were only 2 initial modes, Free For All and Team Match, but 2 more shortly followed. Battle Mode Ice Knight, which judging from the title you probably realize involved the Ice Knight, and the GMS exclusive Battle Mode Capture the Flag. Personally, around that time period, I was actively playing the team match PvP constantly, and unfortunately I never touched the Ice Knight content. However, I heard secondhand from plenty of people that it was their favorite battle mode. But as most of the game was during around that time period, Ice Knight and the rest of PvP was riddled with hackers, which eventually causes a couple problems later on. With the Chaos Ice Knight update, Nexon published one of the MapleStories articles, which was a series of fiction written about in-game events. It's technically not canonical, but it's not exactly fan fiction since it comes from the official source. It's just it wasn't technically in the literal game. This story, though, revolved around the warrior Zira, along with her party encountering Hudak's armor and the memories that it contained. Anyway, shortly after the Ice Knight's introduction, as part of the Acorn Story guide articles that Nexon was publishing, they put out Acorn Story, The Battle Against the Ice Knight. This article kind of explained the game mode and its rewards, but way more interesting was the short story summary that it included. More on that later. 2 months later though, September 2011, we received the version 101 Ascension update, which revamped party quests, rewards, and introduced 3 new party quests: Kenta in Danger, Escape, and the Ice Knight's Curse. The relevant rewards at the time being the Ice Knight's earrings, but eventually it got expanded upon. In the version 104 Legends Cannoneer update in December 2011, Battle Mode received an update which modified skills, included new maps, and reworked many of the values for the Ice Knight Battle Mode. With the later introduction of the Elven Queen, Mercedes, during that same Legends update, Nexon published another one of those MapleStories articles. This time, it focused on the events of the Ice Knight's battle with Aran from Aran's perspective. Roughly a year after its introduction, in the summer of 2012, GMS had received the version 112 Renegades Jet update, and this update closed the battle square, where PvP was located, citing that it was on hiatus, and the reward coins, Gallant emblems, from the content was moved to 70+ monsters, and the exchange shop was moved to Inkwell, outside of the battle square. Additionally, the quests involving the battle square were removed from the game, essentially ending the content. In this same update though, the party quest, the Ice Knight's Curse, received some level requirement adjustments, kinda minor. About 3 months later, in September 2012, we saw the version 118 Champions update. And this brought back the battle square, but in a ruined state, as the Black Mage had attacked Orbis Tower, Orbis Station, Erev, and the battle square. However, this came back with only one PvP battle mode, Grand Battle, and only for a limited time. None of the other battle modes ever made a return. As that event and time period kind of ended, we received version 121, which was November's Rise Against update, which replaced the only available PvP option with battle mode Gladiator. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks later, there were supposed issues with the content and it was made temporarily unavailable in version 123, the Tempest update, which was that same month, November. That temporary unavailability extends 8 years later today, where we still haven't seen battle squares return, and even longer since battle mode Ice Knight. However, this isn't where the Ice Knight's story ended. He remained in the game through the party quest. This PQ remained relatively untouched until around April 2013, when version 132's Hyper Evolution update came out. In this update, party quests were moved to a hub map, Spiegelman's Guest House, which is still used today. However, most party quests were sectioned into restrictive level brackets. Nothing really new for PQs back then. And the Ice Knight's Curse was only available between levels 50 to 70. However, party quests received a 10 entry daily limit. It wasn't about 2 months later when the overwhelming negative feedback was taken into consideration in version 137 Unleashed that June. Now, despite everything else that Unleashed ruined about the game, Party Quest daily limit entries were removed, and the reward costs were also reduced. However, all those level restrictions still remained. 3 months later, in September 2013, version 141, Cygnus Awakening, Spiegelman's guest house was no longer sectioned by level, and everything else was moved into a single entry map. The Ice Knight's Curse PQ was now for 2 to 6 players and level 90+. Additionally, the new rewards were the Ice Knight's shoulder accessory and the Ice Knight's Seeker chain crampons. It basically sat there untouched for about 2 years until its demise though. In August 2015, we received the version 165 Pink Bean Superstar update, and in this update, the Ice Knight's Curse party quest was temporarily closed. If you didn't already realize from other content being temporarily closed, or even the battle square itself, this too has been left to waste even to today. At the time of this video, it's December 2020, which is over 5 years since the PQ was made temporarily unavailable. And it's still unavailable, but I guess Fawn and Iceman are still in Spiegelman's guest house, so it's not a complete wash, but basically there is no way to access any of the Ice Knight's relevant content. Alright, now that we're through with the content history of the Ice Knight, we can get into Hudak's story. So what exactly is the Ice Knight? The Acorn Story article I mentioned earlier provided a short summary, and it reads, "The Ice Knight is the cast-off armor and weapons of the failed champion Hudak. Once a friend to Aran and the other great heroes of the Maple World who defeated the Black Mage during his first rise to power, Hudak succumbed to his own pride and betrayed everything that he believed in, pledging himself to the Black Mage. He fought his former friends only to meet defeat at the hands of Aran. And now he's cursed to spend eternity trapped in his former armor. Whenever a group of Maplers finds it, the armor possesses one of them and turns them against their friends." Additionally, there were 2 entire fictional Maple stories written about the Ice Knight. The first, which was titled A Cold and Empty Place, revolved around a party of 5 adventurers: a warrior, Zira, a pirate, Isak, an unnamed blaze wizard, and 2 other unnamed fighters. Somewhere in the snowy wastes, they found a misshapen and unnatural mound. After brushing off the snow, the blue-steeled armor surged and wrapped itself around Zira. The spiked helmet clamped down on her head, and she bore a terrible axe and began to swing at her friends. She struggled to control herself, the axe becoming a sword to strike down, a summoned ice storm to mortify flesh, a spell to transform someone to a snail. She screamed for them to stop her, and her friends rallied. She wondered if she would die when they defeated the armor, deciding that she didn't care. If it took her own life to save her friends from the cursed armor, it was a sacrifice that she would gladly make. As she felt herself slipping into darkness, the pieces of armor exploded from around her body. Her friends lifted her up, and below her sat a pile of metal bits. The blue armor and empty helmet glared at her, looking utterly hostile, and yet somehow pathetic. "Let's get out of here," Isak said. Zira nodded, and the 5 friends trudged over the hill, and they were gone. But during Zira's time with the armor, she experienced images of the armor's terrible history. Long ago, Hudak sparred with a friendly Aran, training alongside Aran in order to defeat the forces of the Black Mage. Hudak knew if the Black Mage were to be defeated, it would take Maple World's greatest warrior to do so. But his jealousy grew as everyone else looked to Aran as Maple World's savior. Hudak, though a friend of the 5 champions, sought out the Black Mage, who questioned why Hudak wished to enter his service. Years of pain and frustration poured out from him, the sad tale of a man who was overlooked, never acknowledged for his own greatness. The Black Mage smiled, saying,
"I will give you your fair chance at glory. You shall wear this armor, and if you succeed, you will be my champion."
As he granted Hudak the strange metallic blue armor that glittered like ice, the Black Mage then bid him to kill his friend, Aran, to prove his loyalty and reap the rewards. Hudak fought many of Maple World's warriors to reach his old friend, but all those victories were rendered moot by Aran's cursed polearm. He grimaced at the memory of his final fight, his final defeat against Aran. "Is this all you ever were, Hudak?" Aran had said as the polearm had clanged down and driven him from the field, leaving him to crawl back to the Black Mage in disgrace. "Just a pile of armor and weapons with no honor at all."
"Weak! Pathetic!"
The Black Mage roared. Hudak shrank away from the mage's terrible fury, and he could see the sadness on Aran's face even now as the mage's spell took the magical armor, and then his body apart, piece by piece. Today, in the silence of the empty armor, Hudak stared out at a snow-covered field, lost in his despair. He would have liked to believe that this fate was the doing of the mage, but he knew it wasn't. It was Aran's last judgment upon him. He would fight whenever someone came to his lonely field. He would fight forever. And no matter the outcome of an individual battle, he would never win another victory. He was a pile of armor and weapons, with no honor at all. The second of the MapleStory's articles, titled Finding Family, centered around a few of the heroes. This story expanded on Hudak's battle from Aran's perspective. The night before Maplemas was a dark night, with Evan and Aran sitting around a campfire in a small clearing. Evan complained that he was cold, tired, and stuck in the woods away from his family, with it almost being Maplemas. Aran's face softened. "You miss your family?" "What would you know about it?" Evan said. "According to the legends, you've always been alone." Aran sighed. From deep in the forest, she heard the lightest thump, no louder than the sound made by a leaf falling on moss. "You're right, Evan. I never had a family," she began. "I was betrayed once, and I didn't think I could trust anyone again, so I walked through the world alone." Long ago, the dragon and his friend Freed were battling on the next hill, too far away to be of any help. The remainder of their army fought in the valley, leaving Aran and Mercedes against a legion of armor-clad troops. The Elf Queen ran, jumped, and whirled, firing her dart guns and felling the Black Mage's minions. Despite her grace and skill, though, the two heroes were slowly losing their strength. The battle, and with it, the war against the Black Mage. Suddenly, the soldiers stopped rushing forward and formed a circle around the pair. A mighty warrior stepped through the ring, clad in black-blue armor that glittered like ice. Hudak, Aran spat, her one-time friend, now the notorious Ice Knight in service of the Black Mage, had been hunting her relentlessly since his betrayal. The warrior nodded.
"I've come to make you an offer, old friend. Fight me in honorable one-on-one combat. If you win, my troops withdraw and you live to fight another day."
Aran had no choice, but before she could step forward, she felt Mercedes' hand slip something into hers. "Tranquilizing dart," she whispered. "Use it at the right time and you can't lose." Aran shot her a look of withering scorn. "You would have me fight dishonorably," she said, throwing the dart to the ground. "If we are to win this war, it shall be by being better than those we fight." Mercedes said nothing as the battle between the two champions began. And though Aran was the finest fighter she had ever seen, this was not an equal fight. The might of the Black Mage flowed through the Ice Knight's armor. Aran was going to lose, and quietly, she slid another tiny tranquilizing dart out of her sleeve, and with a flick of her bowgun, fired it across the field. It flew through a tiny gap in the Ice Knight's armor, and scratched the flesh beneath. It barely slowed him down, yet that was enough. "Is this all you ever were, Hudak?" Aran screamed at her one-time friend as her polearm clanged down on his helmet. "Just a pile of armor and weapons with no honor at all." Later, "You cheated!" Aran shouted into Mercedes' face. The Ice Knight had crawled away in disgrace, taking the Black Mage's troops with him. "You've taken away my honor and left me nothing." To Aran, that tiny dart signified a stab in the back, a brutal betrayal as bad as the one committed by Hudak. Although Mercedes was a queen of few words, finally she could take no more. "Yes, I cheated," she screamed back. "This is war, Aran. I will not allow your notion of personal honor to imperil our mission. The Black Mage must be destroyed." And she hated this. Aran's bravery, honor, and integrity had saved her more often than she could remember. It seemed inconceivable that something this petty could come between them. Finally, Aran ran out of things to say and turned her back on her. Aran would not leave, she knew, but something broke between them that day that she feared would never be repaired. Today, Evan looked confused, enraptured by the story. He was unsure of its point, saying as much to Aran. "The point is family, Evan." The warrior smiled. "Your family will miss you tomorrow as much as you will miss them. But family doesn't have to be just the people that you're related to." The rustling sounds were getting closer. "Family can be those you work with, those you travel with, those you chance along the road. Family can be anyone whose health and happiness are as important to you as your own. Your family is made of everyone you can't imagine the world without." A figure stepped into the light. She was the most beautiful woman Evan had ever seen. She was tall and willowy and had a bowgun of strange design holstered at each hip. She was smiling at Aran, and Aran's face, on the other hand, was filling with tears as she stood up and approached the elven woman. "Sometimes," Aran concluded, "when we make really stupid mistakes, Family are the people who forgive us anyway. Now, I just want to mention I absolutely changed all the pronouns of Aran to reflect a woman. Both MapleStory's articles were written assuming Aran was male, but I don't care, I'll change it if I want to. Anyway, moving away from fiction, back to in-game relevancy. Battle Mode Ice Knight was a 10-player 9v1 PvP match. In this, a party of 10 would arrive at the Cursed Ice Moor. One person would transform into the Ice Knight and fight everybody else for 7 minutes. If you were chosen as the Ice Knight, you couldn't be knocked back, and you had flash jump. You would also have an ice gauge represented by a number of slots, which allowed you to use a variety of exclusive skills with input combos. Kind of similar to how Aran played at the time. And these skills were Ice Chop, swinging around a frosty axe, Ice Smash, swinging around a frosty sword and freezing a bunch of people, Ice Tempest, an AoE ice storm that did continuous damage, and Ice Curse, which would transform people into snails. That's kind of it. You would just fight for 7 minutes, or until everybody was dead and see who won. In the Ice Knight's Curse party quest, 2 kids from Edelstein stand together at the dangerous forest entrance. Vaughn and another, clad in strange metallic blue armor. Vaughn mentions that the Ice Knight would find you if you're loud, and if you get cursed, you'll end up like his friend here. He wants you to help his friend break this curse though. Even though Vaughn is a kid, he mentions when he was younger, he thought that the other boys were childish and annoying. Jun, however, was different and always followed and listened to him. He was easily scared though, and Vaughn thinks that's why he tried so hard to be brave. Then, Jun was cursed by the Ice Knight, and Vaughn feels responsible. He's also heard that when you eliminate the Ice Knight, you can get a cold ice fragment, which can be used to make either Ice Knight's earrings or Ice Knight chain crampons. Additionally, if you eliminate the Ice Knight and break Jun's curse, he'll give you one too. And this is actually false because you never received one from him. You only got one from a drop from the boss. But basically, all you do is escort Jun as the Iceman, keeping him safe from monsters until you reach the Ice Knight in the Ice Curse Forest, and then you defeat him. It's pretty anticlimactic. And Jun returns to his normal self, can't thank you enough, and then decides to go home. He mentions when you collect enough cold ice fragments, you can bring them to Vaughn, and you might get one of those special items. Now, additionally, there are some other quests in the game files that involve the Ice Knight, but I can't track down any records about them in the patch notes, or any event listings, or really anything in general. I'm simply taking context clues from the narrative and the NPCs involved. From what I've gathered, though, at some point after the Ice Knight's introduction in version 99, there were rumors of a cursed knight appearing in Hennesis between the hours of 2 and 3 p.m. If you spoke with him, he'd tell you, slowly,
I just wanted strength. Why did this happen? If you seek strength, you will suffer my fate. On you, I place this curse. You will never escape this ice arm.
You would then be cursed and transformed into an Ice Knight. Wondering how to lift this curse, you would visit the battle square and speak with one of the guides, Rosette. She asks if you were able to survive the battle mode. Obviously, you turn into an Ice Knight, but that's just kind of part of the battle. But she wonders why you're still wearing armor before realizing that you were cursed. And then she tells you not to worry about it and just have fun, suggesting that you try an Ice Knight match for yourself. Again, since it's not like you'll get stuck as an Ice Knight. And then I don't know, everything's fine, I guess? You get awarded the Ice Knight medal, though. Additionally, there was a quest from Gordon, the shoemaker in El Nath. If you happen to speak with him, he'd tell you an old story. He's lived in town for about 50 years now, not as long as Alcaster, but he does know plenty of myths and folklores. The story of Battle Mode's Ice Knight originated in El Nath, because there was once a small kingdom deep in El Nath. Not wealthy or powerful, but very peaceful. As in any good story, there are always those who abhor peace. In this story, it was the kingdom's first knight. He had a strong arm and enjoyed showing off. The knight left the kingdom in boredom, and after many years he returned, all of his strength gone. No one knows what happened to him, just that the once arrogant warrior had suddenly become a coward. No one knew why. The cowardly knight wanted to regain his power, and he snuck into the castle dungeon and stole a suit of enchanted armor. Ice armor that granted mighty strength, but along with it came a fell curse. With his new ice armor, he gained all the power and courage that he desired. But all that was left of him was the need to destroy. He turned evil and eliminated many innocents, and the king had to step in and defeat the knight with his own hand. The ice armor was returned to the vault, and the knight's name vanished into history. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But Gordon thinks it's interesting. He even has some small evidence of it really happening. The Ice Knight chain crampons. And he's no warrior, he has no need of armor, so he asks if you would want them. For a wager, you could have them. He bets that you can't win 10 Ice Knight battle modes and become an Ice Knight, and if you prove him wrong, they're all yours. When you win and receive them, you mention they look like normal snowshoes instead of a legendary item. Gordon asks if you think he's just trying to push battle mode, saying that, you know how items from old stories are. And that's about it for the Ice Knight Hudak's lore. There's a few inconsistencies with pre-existing story of the heroes. Originally, when Aran was first introduced, the Black Mage's curse on the heroes trapped them all in ice and their memories were wiped. This was sort of retconned into only affecting Aran's memories by the time Mercedes had released, but either way, Aran shouldn't actually recall the story of Hudak or Mercedes. Gordon's story of a quaint Elnath kingdom actually fits in pretty well with Von Leon's unnamed kingdom, and even Von Leon being the king that defeated the knight who stole the armor. They don't explicitly state it, but I think that was the intention, considering Von Leon and the Lion King's castle released about 3 months prior to the Ice Knight battle mode. With the introduction of Abrupt Basin in 2018 though, there are actually multiple possible kingdoms. Obviously these weren't in consideration back then, but it does mean that Von Leon's kingdom isn't the only possibility. It's unlikely that they ever will, but if they did ever want to make use of the Ice Knight again, they could potentially utilize any of those places. Technically also, if you only stick to in-game as canon, the Ice Knight's name, Hudak, is never mentioned. It's only in sources outside of the game. Additionally, Gordon's story is the only in-game mention of the Ice Knight's story at all, and he even specifically states that the Ice Knight's name is lost to history. Although he himself, Gordon, mentions that maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Personally, I prefer the MapleStory's articles. I like them. I think they're a much better, compelling story. I'm more than willing to accept them as canon. While we're moving past the story of the Black Mage in current times, I think the story of a failed potential commander that was once an ally for the heroes is actually pretty dope. There is one little last piece of information. I've kind of had trouble tracking down when it was first added, either probably in Chaos or Ascension, but the Ice Knight was made into a pet. And while that's kind of cool on its own, I guess, the description for the Ice Knight pet reads, "A human being been transformed to a Ice Knight by the Black Mage." While that grammar is kind of terrible, it's cleaned up in official cash shop updates on the website. If you want to subscribe and click the little bell icon, you can get a notification for when I actually do get around to making another video. Also, if you enjoy any of the lore, share the video with your friends or something, because it would actually help a lot. Anyway, I'm sure you guys have noticed I haven't uploaded much in 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic has kind of made it pretty difficult for me to record audio, which is kind of the most important part here. I know the few of you who actually do watch these videos enjoy them, but I just want to apologize and say sorry for not putting out more content. I don't have many subscribers, but I feel like I've let you down this year. That's something I want to touch on, actually. Realistically, there really is only a few of you, though. I've been doing this sporadically over 5 years, but I barely break 500 views on most of my videos. I put an absolute ton of effort into everything I do regarding the video, but honestly there isn't much payoff aside from everybody's kind comments. It's kind of had a terrible effect on my motivation, but if you watch this far, I'd love to get your ideas on what I could do better. The only thing I'm really not comfortable doing is self-promotion. The videos I've posted on the MapleStory subreddit have performed the best, but my anxiety kind of gets the better of me from posting myself. But if you guys have any ideas for how else I could improve, please leave me a comment. Obviously, I know posting regularly would probably help a lot, but pandemic is kind of a niche situation lately. But anyway, if there's anything important that I'm missing, let me know. He was a pile of armor and weapons with no honor at all.